In a sun-drenched valley, nestled among rolling green hills, lived a young man named Alara. He wasn't a warrior or a nobleman. He was a simple farmer, with hands calloused from work and a heart full of doubt. The world around him seemed vast and intimidating, filled with grand structures and powerful men in gleaming armor. Their achievements were like mountains, while his own life felt as small and insignificant as a single grain of sand. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of purple and orange, Alara sat beneath an ancient olive tree. His fields were barren, his well was nearly dry, and a shadow of despair had fallen over him. "What good is my effort?" he whispered to the wind. "I am one small person against a world of giants. My strength is nothing. My hope is a flickering candle in a storm." As he sat there, lost in his thoughts, a wise old traveler approached. The man's face was a map of countless journeys, his eyes held a gentle light, and he leaned on a sturdy walking staff. He saw the young man's downcast face and sat beside him. "The weight of the world seems heavy on your shoulders, son," the traveler said, his voice calm and kind. Alara looked up, surprised. He poured out his heart, his voice trembling with frustration. He spoke of his failures, his fears, and the feeling of being utterly powerless. "My dreams are big," Alara confessed, "but my ability is so small. How can I ever build anything that lasts? How can my small life ever make a difference?" The old traveler listened patiently. When Alara finished, he didn't offer empty platitudes or easy answers. Instead, he reached into a small leather pouch at his belt. He sifted through its contents and then held out his palm. There, in the center of his weathered hand, lay a single, tiny seed. It was almost invisible, smaller than any other seed Alara had ever seen. "What do you see?" the traveler asked. Alara squinted. "It's just a mustard seed," he replied, confused. "It's the smallest of all the seeds I plant in my garden." "It's practically dust," the traveler smiled. "Yes," he agreed, "it is the smallest of seeds. But within this tiny shell, a great promise is sleeping." He told Alara to take the seed. "Go," he said, "plant it in your field. Not in the best soil, but in any soil. Water it when you can. And then, watch." Confused but intrigued by the old man's confidence, Alara took the seed. It felt weightless, almost imaginary in his hand. Could something so small truly hold any power? The next morning, driven by a flicker of curiosity, Alara did as the traveler had instructed. He walked to a neglected corner of his field, a patch of dry, cracked earth he had long given up on. He knelt, pushed the tiny seed into the stubborn ground with his finger, and covered it with a pinch of dust. He gave it a small cup of water from his dwindling supply. It felt like a fool's errand. Days turned into weeks. Other farmers in the valley laughed. "Alara is planting dust now," they would say, pointing at the barren patch of land. Alara's own doubts grew louder. He saw no change, no sign of life. The ground remained as cracked and empty as before. The mockery stung, and the seed of hope the traveler had planted in his heart began to wither. He was ready to give up, to accept that he was destined for a small, fruitless life. Just as he was about to abandon the spot forever, he noticed something. A tiny speck of green, so small he almost missed it, was pushing its way through the hard soil. It was a miracle of defiance, a whisper of life in a place of death. A surge of renewed hope went through him. He rushed to his well, drew water, and carefully nurtured the fragile sprout. The tiny plant was determined. Slowly, painstakingly, it grew. It wasn't a dramatic explosion of life, but a quiet, persistent journey upwards. Through scorching sun and sudden chills, the little plant held on. Alara found himself visiting it every day, not just as a duty, but because this small, tenacious life was teaching him something. It was teaching him about resilience. Months passed, and the seasons turned. The small sprout was no longer a sprout. It became a stalk, then a bush, growing taller and wider than any of the other plants in his garden. Its branches reached for the sky, strong and thick. Its leaves created a vast canopy of vibrant green. The laughter of the other farmers had long since faded, replaced by gasps of astonishment. Alara's tiny mustard seed had not just grown into a plant. It had transformed into a magnificent tree, the largest in the entire valley. Its branches were so wide and sturdy that birds, once just passing specks in the sky, came to build their nests among its leaves. Weary travelers, seeking refuge from the midday sun, found cool, welcoming shade beneath its enormous canopy. Children played in its shadow, their laughter echoing through its branches. One hot afternoon, as Alara rested under the great tree, he looked at its thick trunk and sprawling branches, and he finally understood. He looked at his own hands, the same hands that had once felt so weak and useless. These were the hands that had planted the seed. His small act of faith, that single moment of choosing hope over despair, had been the catalyst for this incredible transformation. The great tree wasn't just a tree, it was a symbol. It was a living, breathing testament to the power of small beginnings. It was a community hub, a sanctuary, a landmark. All from a seed so tiny, it was almost nothing. The tree provided for others in ways Alara could never have done on his own. It gave shelter, safety, and a place of rest. The wise old traveler never returned, but his lesson was etched into Alara's soul. He realized that faith, like the mustard seed, doesn't have to be big to start, it just needs to be planted. Even the smallest speck of hope, nurtured with patience and perseverance, can grow into something magnificent, something that can shelter and support others. From that day on, Alara was a changed man. He no longer saw himself as small and insignificant. He understood that his purpose wasn't to be a mountain, but to be the one who plants the seed. He began to apply this lesson to every part of his life. A kind word to a neighbor, a helping hand to a stranger, a prayer whispered in the quiet of the morning, these were his new seeds. He knew that he might not always see the immediate result. He might not see the sprout push through the ground right away, but he had learned to trust the process. He had learned that the greatest of things, the things that truly change the world, often start with a single, small, almost invisible act of faith. And just like his magnificent tree, the impact of his life grew, reaching further and wider than he had ever dared to dream. His life, once a barren field, was now a thriving garden, all because he dared to plant one tiny seed. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe for more stories like this.